Picture the greatest city on Earth. 1,000,000 people, running water, heated floors, roads stretching 50,000 miles in every direction, all of them leading back to one place. A legal system so advanced that its principles still govern your life today. A military machine so dominant it hadn't lost a war in 4 centuries. This was Rome, the greatest empire the Western world has ever seen. And in 476 AD, it was gone. Not with a bang, not in a single battle, but slowly, quietly, like a fire running out of air. But what if it hadn't fallen? What if Rome had found a way to hold, to reform, to survive? Would we have reached the Industrial Revolution by 700 AD? Would there have been a Renaissance, or would Rome have made it unnecessary? Would Christianity have shaped the world the way it did, or would Rome have kept it contained? And most importantly, would the world be more advanced today, or more dangerous? Today, we answer all of it. This is the alternate history of an empire that refused to die. First, to understand what could have been, we need to understand what actually went wrong. Because Rome didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it forgot what made it strong. By the 3rd century AD, the empire was hemorrhaging on every front simultaneously. Endless civil wars, 50 emperors in 50 years, the throne decided by whoever had the biggest army. Currency debasement destroyed the economy. Taxes crushed the middle class into poverty. The borders, once impenetrable, began to crack under relentless barbarian pressure. And a devastating plague swept through the empire, killing 1/3 of its population. Rome wasn't conquered. Rome was exhausted. But what if, at exactly the right moment, the right emperor had emerged? What if Rome had found its second wind? If you love alternate history, forgotten empires, and the stories that almost were, subscribe His 2D right now. New alternate history every week. Let's get into it. Historians have long debated the exact moment Rome passed the point of no return. Most point to the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, a catastrophic Roman defeat against the Visigoths. Emperor Valens was killed, 2/3 of the Eastern Roman army destroyed in a single afternoon. But what if Valens had listened to his generals? What if he had waited one more day? His Western co-emperor Gratian was just days away with fresh reinforcements. Impatience, pride, a single afternoon's decision. That was the pivot point. In our alternate timeline, Valens waits. Gratian arrives. The Visigoths are crushed. Rome wins the Battle of Adrianople, and everything that follows changes. With the Visigoth threat eliminated, Rome stabilizes its Danube frontier for the first time in decades. A surviving Valens, chastened and politically weakened, is forced to share real power. The Senate reasserts itself. Military reforms begin. The empire starts, slowly and painfully, to breathe again. And here is the critical factor that changes everything downstream. Without the Visigoth breakthrough, the domino chain of barbarian invasions never starts. The Huns, pressing from the east, find no Visigoth refugees to displace into Roman territory. The pressure valve holds. The borders hold. Rome barely, painfully holds. Now the question becomes, what does a surviving Rome actually look like? A Rome that survives Adrianople is not a Rome that stays the same. It can't afford to. The near-death experience forces the reforms that history's Rome could never quite manage. First, the military. Rome stops relying on barbarian mercenaries and rebuilds a citizen army. Land is redistributed to veterans in exchange for military service. The legions are reborn. Second, the economy. Currency is stabilized, tax collection is reformed, trade routes reopen. Third, and most consequentially, power is decentralized. The empire splits, but deliberately. Not into dying eastern and western halves, but into 4 strong, coordinated regional governments. Each region governs its own affairs. Each contributes to the collective imperial defense. It is not democracy, but it is not pure autocracy either. It's something new. Something Rome had always been: pragmatic, adaptive, willing to become whatever survival required. By 450 AD in this alternate timeline, Rome is not just surviving, it is expanding again. North Africa is firmly held, Britannia is retained, the Rhine-Danube frontier is fortified. And something extraordinary begins to happen in the workshops and academies of Roman cities. Without the chaos of collapse, Roman engineering never stops advancing. The water mills that Rome had invented but never fully developed begin to proliferate. Roman metallurgy, already centuries ahead of its time, begins pushing towards new discoveries. And the accumulated knowledge of Greece, Egypt, and the Near East, preserved in Roman libraries, keeps building, keeps connecting, keeps producing insights that in our timeline were lost for 1,000 years. Here is where the alternate history becomes truly staggering. Historians of science have long argued that Rome was on the edge of an industrial revolution. Hero of Alexandria had already invented a primitive steam engine in 100 AD. It was treated as a curiosity, a toy for temple doors, because slave labor was cheaper. But in our Rome, slavery declines, labor becomes expensive, machines become necessary. The economic pressure that drove Britain's Industrial Revolution in the 1700s arrives in Rome by 600 AD. Water power, wind power, mechanical looms, early combustion experiments. The Roman road network, already the most advanced infrastructure system in the ancient world, becomes the backbone of an early industrial economy 1,000 years before Manchester. And with industrialization comes something Rome's philosophers had already begun to theorize: representative governance, rights of citizens, the limitation of imperial power by written law. Rome had the concept of the Republic in its cultural DNA. It never forgot it, even under the emperors. A reformed, industrializing Rome begins, slowly and imperfectly, moving towards constitutional government. Not the democracy of Athens, not the Parliament of Westminster, but something distinctly Roman. A Senate with real teeth, an emperor bound by law, citizens with enforceable rights. By 700 AD in this alternate world, Rome looks less like ancient history and more like the future. But a surviving Rome doesn't just change itself, it changes everything around it. Christianity, without the fall of Rome, never becomes the dominant force it became in our world. Rome tolerates it, as it tolerated every religion, but never loses control of it. There is no pope with political power rivaling kings, no crusades, no inquisition. The Islamic world still rises, but it meets a Roman frontier that holds, trades, and competes. Instead of conquest and counter-conquest, there is exchange, commerce, rival civilizations pushing each other forward. The Dark Ages, that thousand-year stumble of European civilization, simply do not happen. Knowledge accumulates uninterrupted. Science advances without theological suppression. There is no need for a renaissance because Rome never forgot what it knew. By the year 1000 in this alternate world, Rome may have already reached what we call the modern era. Printing presses, early chemistry, mechanical power, global trade networks. Perhaps even, and this is where the imagination strains, early exploration of the Americas by Rome. But here is the question that haunts this entire thought experiment. Would a world without Rome's fall be a better world, or simply a different one? Because Rome was also slavery. Rome was also brutal conquest. Rome was also cultural erasure. The peoples Rome never let rise, the Franks, the Saxons, the Celts, the Goths, their cultures, their languages, their contributions to human civilization, gone, absorbed, forgotten. Our world, messy, scarred, fractured, is also extraordinarily diverse because Rome fell. France and England and Germany and Spain exist because Rome stopped holding them together by force. The fall of Rome wasn't just a catastrophe, it was also, in ways we rarely acknowledge, a liberation. So here is your question to sit with today. Would you rather live in a world that advanced faster or a world that became more free? Because in the story of Rome, you may not be able to have both. Drop your answer in the comments. Like and subscribe if history just got more complicated for you. The past is never finished with us, and we are just getting started.